If you're a lawyer, a business person, or a politician who wants to weasel out of a promise, avoid taxes, you feverishly look for a loophole in a contract, law, or agreement that will allow you to escape fulfilling a promise or avoid an obligation. But did the term loophole always refer to legal agreements, taxes, or promises? You'll discover how the term loophole came to be in this episode of History of Everyday Sayings. This is your host, Stephen Carter, welcoming you to episode 4 of History of Everyday Sayings. This show is for you if you are a logophile, meaning, of course, a lover of words, a writer, a speaker, a philomath, or someone who simply loves history tidbits you can use to impress friends and family. Speaking of tidbits, each episode is short and bite-sized for easy listening and recall. By listening, you'll discover how phrases and words we use every day came to be. You'll discover many surprises along our language journey, so pack your curiosity and let's explore our phrase of the day. Loophole. To find the origin of this rather odd word, let's climb into our Wayback Time travel machine and set coordinates for 1591. That was the year, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary online, when the term loophole first appeared. In the late 16th century, European battles often involved attempts to capture castles. In the days when archers used longbows and later crossbows, arrows filled the sky in attempts to kill or wound soldiers and noblemen who had taken defensive positions in massive castle fortifications. As you might imagine, this was not a welcome experience by those people taking refuge in those castles. Wealthy barons and kings hired the best and the brightest of castle architects and builders to erect fortifications capable of withstanding these prolonged sieges. During this period, some creative architect, whose name is lost in the dust of history, came up with the brilliant idea to create narrow slits to allow archers within the castle to fire arrows at opposing soldiers. These narrow slits were, of course, known as loopholes. While there's no record as to who was the first to employ loopholes in castle fortifications, by the early 17th century, they were common defensive features for virtually all castles. The term loophole most likely derived from the Dutch word lopen, meaning to watch. Later in the 17th century, loophole came to be used in everyday English to mean a small opening or an outlet of escape. And that term has survived century upon century of use down to this present day. Few people know the origin of this often used phrase, but now you can count yourself among the tiny minority of people who do. Thank you for listening. If you're curious about exploring more about the history of this saying, you'll find the references I used for this podcast episode. You'll find those references identified in our show notes. For more amazing history of everyday sayings, tasty auditory tidbits you can use to amaze friends and family, subscribe for free where you get your podcasts. If you would like to comment on this or any other episode, email me at cartermethod@gmail.com. Until our next visit, this is your host, Stephen Carter, wishing you blessings in abundance.